It was supposed to be just another weekend getaway. I'd rented a cabin deep in the woods, far from the noise and distractions of the city. The forecast had mentioned a snowstorm, but I'd shrugged it off. I'd seen snow before. How bad could it be? The drive up the mountain was uneventful. The first flurries started to fall as I unpacked my bags and settled into the cozy little cabin. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, the snow had intensified, blanketing the forest in a thick, suffocating silence. I stood by the window, sipping my coffee, watching the storm rage outside. It was beautiful, mesmerizing even. The first sign that something was off came later that night. I was sitting by the fireplace, the only sounds the crackle of burning wood and the howling wind outside. Suddenly, there was a loud thud against the cabin wall. It wasn't the kind of sound snow makes when it falls off a tree. This was deliberate, almost like someone had thrown something. I froze, straining to listen. The wind carried faint whispers, but I convinced myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. Still, I couldn't shake the unease that crept over me. I locked the doors and windows before heading to bed, telling myself I was being paranoid. The storm worsened overnight. When I woke, the cabin was buried in snow up to the windowsills. The power was out, leaving me without heat or light. I cursed under my breath and layered up before heading outside to assess the situation. The cold was biting, the kind that seeps into your bones and doesn't let go. That's when I saw them. Footprints. Fresh ones, leading from the forest right up to my front door. My stomach dropped. The prints were large, too big to be from any animal I knew of, and they were spaced far apart, like whoever or whatever made them had a massive stride. I followed the trail as far as I dared, but they disappeared into the dense woods. My rational mind told me it was probably just a hiker who had gotten lost in the storm. But another part of me, the primal part, whispered that no one should be out in weather like this. No one. As I turned back to the cabin, I saw something in the snow, a crude symbol etched into the white powder just a few feet from the door. It was a circle with jagged lines radiating outwards, like some sort of tribal sun. I didn't recognize it, but it felt ancient, menacing. The rest of the day was a blur of anxiety. I tried the radio, my phone, anything to reach the outside world, but the storm had cut me off completely. By nightfall, I'd barricaded the doors and windows with whatever I could find, convinced that someone, or something, was out there. Sleep didn't come easily. Every creak of the wood, every gust of wind set my nerves on edge. At some point I must have drifted off because I woke to the sound of footsteps inside the cabin. Slow. It started as a routine drive. The forecast had warned of snow, but no one could have predicted the storm's ferocity. I was heading to my family's cabin in the woods, a tradition every winter, but as the flakes thickened and the wind howled, doubt began creeping in. The highway stretched endlessly in front of me, a featureless void of white. My windshield wipers struggled to keep up, and even the high beams barely pierced the swirling snow. The GPS lost signal miles ago, leaving me to navigate by memory and gut instinct. Trees loomed on either side of the road, their skeletal branches bending under the weight of the snow. Then I saw it. At first it was just a flicker of movement in my peripheral vision, a shadow darting between the trees. I told myself it was a deer or maybe a fox, common enough in these parts. But something about the way it moved, fast, deliberate, almost human, sent a shiver down my spine. I tightened my grip on the wheel, eyes scanning the woods. "It's nothing," I muttered aloud, though my voice sounded hollow, even to myself. The storm intensified, snowflakes battering the car like icy bullets. The tires slipped on the icy road, and I eased off the gas, heart pounding. A sudden thud jolted the car. I slammed the brakes, skidding to a stop. My headlights illuminated a figure sprawled in the snow. A man. Panic surged through me as I jumped out, the cold slicing through my jacket. The man lay motionless, his face obscured by a hood. "Hey, are you okay?" I shouted, kneeling beside him. No response. I shook his shoulder, and he stirred, groaning softly. Relief flooded me. "You're alive. Can you stand?" His head turned slowly, and for the first time I saw his face. Or rather, what was left of it. His skin was pale and waxy, his eyes sunken deep into hollow sockets. His lips parted, revealing teeth that seemed wrong, too sharp, too many. I stumbled back, my breath visible in the freezing air. What the hell?" The man, if I could still call him that, lunged at me with unnatural speed. I barely had time to react, scrambling to my feet and diving back into the car. I slammed the door just as he hit the side, his hands clawing at the window, leaving smears of something dark and viscous. The engine roared to life, and I floored it, tires spinning before finding traction. My heart hammered as the car fishtailed down the road. In the rearview mirror, the man stood in the middle of the road watching me, his silhouette blurred by the snowstorm, but unmistakable. I didn't stop driving, not for miles, not until the gas gauge dipped dangerously low, and I realized I had no choice but to find shelter. A faint glow appeared through the storm, a house, or maybe a lodge. Relief warred with suspicion, but the biting cold left no room for hesitation. I pulled into the driveway, my car sputtering to a stop. The building was old, its windows dark. I knocked on the door, my fist numb from the cold. No answer. I tried the handle, and it creaked open, revealing a dimly lit interior. A fire crackled weakly in the hearth, and the faint smell of wood smoke hung in the air. "Hello?" I called out, stepping inside. The warmth was a small comfort, but the silence was unnerving. The place seemed abandoned, yet the fire suggested otherwise. Then I saw the photographs. Black and white pictures lined the walls, all depicting the same man. The same face I had seen in the snow, though younger, healthier, In every photo, his eyes seemed to follow me, a cold intensity that made my stomach churn. A sudden noise shattered the silence, a faint scraping sound like nails on wood. It came from upstairs. My first instinct was to leave, but the storm outside was unforgiving. Gathering my courage, I grabbed a poker from the fireplace and ascended the creaking stairs. The sound grew louder as I approached a closed door at the end of the hall. My breath came in shallow gasps, the weight of dread pressing down on me. I reached for the doorknob, my hand trembling, and pushed it open. The room was empty, save for a chair facing a frosted window. On it sat the man, his back to me. His shoulders rose and fell with each labored breath. "Why did you leave me?" he rasped, his voice echoing unnaturally. "I didn't," I stammered, gripping the poker tightly. "I don't even know you." He turned slowly, his face now grotesquely distorted, as if decaying before my eyes. "You brought me back," he hissed, "and now we're both trapped." The window behind him shattered, a gust of icy wind extinguishing the firelight. Darkness enveloped the room as his laughter, low, guttural, and inhuman, filled the air. I ran. Down the stairs, through the front door, into the storm. The snow swallowed my footsteps as I fled into the woods, branches clawing at me like skeletal hands. His laughter followed, growing louder, closer, until it was all I could hear. I don't remember how I survived the night. When dawn broke, I was found by a search party, half frozen and delirious. Whispers in the snow. The storm hit harder than anyone predicted. By the time I realized I should have turned back, it was already too late. The blizzard was a white wall, swallowing the road, the trees, and the world outside my truck. Visibility was zero, but I couldn't stop. Stopping meant freezing. I was on Route 12, the lonely stretch of highway cutting through the Adirondacks. It was supposed to be a quick delivery, just a few crates of supplies to a tiny lodge buried deep in the woods. The radio crackled warnings all day, but deadlines didn't care about weather. The storm howled like a living thing, shaking my truck as I crawled along at a snail's pace. I don't know what was louder, the wind or my own heartbeat. Then through the swirling chaos, my headlights caught something. A figure. At first I thought it was a trick of the snow, but it wasn't. A man was standing in the middle of the road. No coat, no hat, just a dark silhouette against the blinding white. I slammed on the brakes, tires skidding, my stomach lurching as the truck slid sideways. When I came to a stop, the man was gone. I sat there gripping the wheel, breathing hard. Had I imagined it? The storm made everything seem unreal. But when I opened the door, cold slamming into me like a punch, I saw footprints leading off into the woods. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice barely audible over the storm. "Do you need help?" No answer. Just the wind. I grabbed my flashlight and followed the tracks. I don't know why. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was instinct. Or maybe it was the way those footprints didn't look quite right. They weren't deep, like someone walking in boots. They were shallow, almost delicate. I trailed them into the trees, the beam of my flashlight cutting through the swirling snow. The tracks weaved erratically, like whoever left them was stumbling. Then they just stopped. I swept the light around, my breath freezing in the air. Nothing. No tracks leading away, no broken branches, no sign of anyone. Just an eerie silence, as if the storm had paused to hold its breath. That's when I heard it. A faint whisper, like someone speaking just behind me. I spun around, my flashlight trembling in my hand. "Who's there?" The whisper came again, this time from my left. I whipped the light toward the sound, but the beam caught only snow and shadows. Panic clawed at my chest. I backed away, the crunch of snow under my boots sounding too loud, too sharp. The wind picked up, carrying more whispers. Words I couldn't make out, but they sounded like my name. I turned and ran, the flashlight bouncing wildly in my hand. The truck was my lifeline, and I needed to get back to it. But when I broke through the trees and onto the road, the truck wasn't there.